Carter.
Can't believe his luck either.
One of the veterans of motorsport. Got a bit of the front spoiler missing. And at the same time, they also have what appears to be an engine detonation there too. Okay, Colin Bond moving up behind Grice, who's dropped back a little off the tail of Dick Johnson. Johnson comes down to Winfield, takes it quite cleanly. Grice in second place, Bond is third in the 9 Camaro.
Peter Brock, fourth place, well back, about 70 metres behind Colin Bond. Then Gary Wilmington in the Falcon, and the Army Reserve car behind him. And it's still V8s in the top 6 places. Colin Bond really throwing that big Camaro around with gay abandon.
They've settled down to a steady pattern in the race. Whether Grice is going to wait for a few more laps and come running back at Dick Johnson, we'll have to wait and see. And Bond has made up some gain on Alan Grice, but has been unable to go on with it. They've started to put the pressure back on the race leader. Well, Alan Grice is taking care of that. They come through that turn, through Winfield, short straight to Camalco turn, where you'll see them come through now. There's Johnson. Not too far back behind him, Alan Grice. Then back in third is, of course, Colin Bond and the Kevin Bartlett Camaro.
Back in the field in about 7th place, Phil Alexander leads the RX-7 brigade. As I said, 6 big V8s ahead of him, led by the True Blue Queenslander Dick Johnson and everybody's favourite Grice in second spot.
Well, he's done a great job in the recar entry. Of course, raced it in the first round of the AMSCAR here for Alan Brown. I believe they're building a new car at the moment, and Grice has a permanent role in the car for the AMSCAR series and also the distance races, which will include, obviously, the premier event on the Australian motorsporting calendar, and that's the James Hardy 1000.
Nose to tail.
They've started to run away a bit from Colin Bond and Brock's. That's probably the most uncompetitive we've seen Peter Brock for quite a long time.
Well, as he said earlier, Mike, the car's just lost 0.2 of a second per lap. He doesn't know where it's gone and he can't find it. Over the top, Dick Johnson, really under tremendous pressure, and has been right from the outset from Alan Grice. Falcon versus Commodore. Camaro camped behind them. Bond has got through that little bit of traffic as well. Whether or not it was the traffic that held him up momentarily remains to be seen. And he's dropped off just fractionally, and fractions are what count around here at Amaroo Park.
Well, back comes Alan Grice. His race is far from over. Back to put the pressure squarely on the shoulders of Dick Johnson of Brisbane. Winfield turn. Johnson is sideways, but not as much as he was in the opening couple of laps of this race. Grice still there, putting the pressure on. It's always a pleasure to watch two good riders, two great drivers of touring cars, and just how relaxed they look at the wheel of the car. Take Johnson and Grice, both the same. You'd swear that they're out having a Sunday drive. Well, they are.
6.3 seconds, between Dick Johnson and the 4th place getter Peter Brock, and it's a long time since there's been that distance between that pair.
Grice closing it up again, coming for one quick shot at Johnson through Honda Corner, the short straight down to the right-hander at Winfield. This is where Johnson was leading the CRC Classic last year and spun it coming out of this corner. Regained the lead later in the race. Once again through Camalco turn. And how much closer does Alan Grice have to get? Perhaps at this stage that's where he plans on being. Just sitting there in the draft, pulls to the outside. That was only to move around at the back of the car. There was no way he was going to make an outside pass. Now he thinks about it though.
Oh boy, the race is half over. Still a long way to go, Alan. Take it easy. 12.5 of the 25 laps gone. It's Johnson, Grice, Bond in 3rd spot. Brock, he's 4th. Wilmington in 5th spot. Muir 6th.
Well, anything could certainly happen between the front-running two cars here. Colin Bond will be around to pick up the marbles. But here comes Grice down on the inside, and he has got Dick Johnson straight underneath Dick Johnson, and Alan Grice goes through, but he's all tail skating as well. Johnson roams up on the outside. That's a little cut there as well. They come back on to the start, finishing straight through Camalco Turn, and now it's Alan Grice of Sydney who's taken the lead away from Dick Johnson. Johnson closes it up as they head up Bitchapave Hill to the top again. Colin Bond still in third place. That was ever so easy. He made that look very easy. Happiest boy on the block today is Alan Grice, car number 4. Wanted to win this race. More relaxed Alan Grice than we've seen for some considerable period of time. Here he comes down to the left-hander at Honda. Laps ticking past. This is a 25-lapper for the $70,000 AMSCAR Series that's jointly sponsored by Better Brakes and by CRC. And of course, our telecast of motor racing action throughout Australia is brought to you on the 7 Network by Goodyear.
There goes Gricey. Well, he's probably breathing a little easier now that he's got by Johnson with about 10 laps of the race to go. And in fact, pulled away by several car lengths. Now, whether or not Johnson's just willing to bide his time for a few laps and get himself together again for another challenge remains to be seen. Colin Bond in the 9 Camaro back in third spot and still not out of touch with this leading pair. Certainly out of touch at this stage of the race is Peter Brock in the Marlboro Neolithine Commodore 05. 7.5 seconds the distance between second place getter Dick Johnson and Brock in 05, holding down the fourth spot. Then Wilmington, then Muir. The Venison Bluebird has been a little disappointing. It's languishing back in the field at this stage of the race, as are the Barbecues Galore Camaros, the pair of them, driven by Ron Dixon and Graham Horn. Through
Camalco Corner. The order is still unchanged. Alan Grice in the Recar Commodore.